In this lecture, I am overviewing the very short letter written by Jude. So, Jude wrote this letter, and we don't know a ton about him. What we do know is that he was the brother of James and the half brother of Jesus. We know that he did not believe in Jesus during his earthly ministry. So, it is most likely the case that he came to believe in Jesus after he was resurrected. We know that Jude was writing his letter to Christian believers, but we are unsure where these believers were located. And then, as far as the date, we believe it was written in the mid to late 60s, so around the same time that many of the other epistles were written. Jude's reason for writing, he states it pretty clearly early on in his letter. First, it was to write on the topic of salvation, but then right after that, he says, but given what he had heard about the heresy that was creeping into the church, he also had to address that. So the nature of the heresy is unknown, but as some of the other epistles were fighting the same heresy, it most likely was a form of Gnosticism. So if you remember some of the characteristics of the false teachings in these previous lectures, some of these people led immoral lives because they saw this disconnect between spirit and material. The material was evil, spirit was good. Therefore, whatever they did in their bodies, whatever they did with material, had nothing to do with their spirit. And so, as a result, they just kind of lived however they wanted. And then second, they believed that salvation came through these special rituals into as a way of like initiation into their cult. And so Jude is primarily focused on defending against these heresies that were creeping into the church. So then his key themes, once again, we see these themes pretty often throughout the epistles. The first one is discerning truth from error. So standing strong on the truth that you know of the gospel and being able to discern what the false teaching is and not being swayed by it. And then second, he focuses on living a life that is set apart from the rest of the world, living a life that is what God would intend as someone that is believing in God and being a member of the kingdom. He says, build yourself up in your most holy faith and pray in the Holy Spirit. So he's encouraging his readers to live a holy life. Finally, a few interesting facts about Jude. First, for Jude to have written such a short letter, it's only one chapter, he cites two extra-biblical Jewish writings. The first is Jewish apocalyptic, and that's the book of Enoch. And then the second is a work from the intertestamental times called The Assumption of Moses. So some scholars have criticized the fact that he cited these, giving these as evidence that this maybe should not have been part of the canon. Second, Jude was likely either the third or fourth son born to Joseph and Mary after Jesus. And we see this from the gospel accounts of Matthew and Mark. And then, as I mentioned in the lecture on 2 Peter, Jude, for the vast majority of his very short letter, his content is very similar to 2 Peter. So as you know, several of these epistles have these same themes, there is a striking similarity between Jude and 2 Peter. So that pretty much wraps up the very short but rich letter of Jude.